And we just appreciate him and the knowledge that he shares. A really, really strong public health and environmental health background. And from there, Rick, I'll ask you to introduce yourself the rest of the way. And we're seeing your editing slides, not the presentation mode.
I think that's fine.
Yeah, that's just fine. Thank you.
Yeah, what I can do is maybe a little bit of that, but
yeah, you're good.
I've got some notes on there that I may need to reference. So so today I just wanted to advocate for the using COBRA, the co-benefits risk assessment tool that EPA has put together and has made public and has recently updated. And I wanted to advocate its use and to explain a little bit how you saw it being used in the market research report addendum that came out last year. So I'll give you a little bit of Yoder news in terms of giving some background and future. We're going to look at the COBRA, an overview and a very quick how-to, because it'll help you understand better what comes out of it. And then if there's time, we'll do a BPK example, which was also in the market research reports. So how about, yep, I'm retired, mostly. July 1st, I stepped back from daily work at the University of Nebraska at Omaha, Nebraska Business Development Center. And I've got my first retirement job working with the Omaha Public Power District. I'm also working on a recreational property north of Kansas City, near our grandson. And I'd be happy to hear from you and to connect with you. I still have the R. Yoder email account at unomaha.edu. Honestly, the best way to get a hold of me is to use my cell phone, and which I'm not going to put on the slide, but happy to share it with you, 402-297-7668. So really, it's been a thrill working with everybody all these years. COVID, Gene and I were just texting the other day. We miss each other through our work, but we also, we miss all of these relationships we built and maintained over the years, as well as what COVID has done to us. We're increasingly missing our own friends and family. So the update for everyone who may or may not be familiar with COBRA, is that there was last year in 2019 an AVERT and COBRA training for Region 7. I think they did it in all of the regions. So AVERT is an avoided emissions and generation tool that estimates health benefits that estimates the emission benefits that come out of energy reductions. And then COBRA quantifies the health benefits. This year, COBRA was updated. All of the numbers that you saw in the MRR report have been updated, but they haven't been updated in your MRR report. So happy to work with you on this. I'm kind of liking this tool. I bring it up often with my Omaha Public Power District folks. Yes, it is very public health oriented, and frankly, I think that's a real benefit. It's a screening tool. It's not a model. I am not the expert. I didn't put it together. I'm merely a user. And if you want expert, detailed kind of answers to your questions, it's probably best to go to the EPA and maybe even to their contractor, who is very freely made available. But you have to go through Emma Zinsmeister at headquarters on that. So the conceptual model for what COBRA is doing and AVERT is doing is that they put this in the context of the electricity system, and that if an energy efficiency kind of pollution prevention program is put forward, there are benefits that come from that. benefits in terms of emissions and health benefits. And then COBRA converts or quantifies what those health benefits are and discusses them, describes them as economic benefits. And I think this is where it's pretty useful for our technical assistance providers working with businesses, large or small, or working with policy folks on defining the social benefits that we've always acknowledged are out there, but have had a harder time to quantify. So said in another way, this is the energy efficiency is the resource, and reducing classic generation, fossil fuel generation, improves air quality that can reduce premature death or improve human health. And we'll go through kind of what the attributes are that are quantified in COBRA. There's an economic value for that, and businesses should be aware that their actions on reducing energy consumption from fossil fuel has direct benefits for their employees, as well as their community, as well as extended benefits throughout the US. So here's what I think is useful in the conversation. There is a real dollar value that is tied to reduced illness and reduced worker absence associated with reduced risk and exposure to emissions. These social costs can be used to layer in another level of dollar value for the return on investment for an energy efficiency or renewable energy project. Also, since all of our programs need to defend our existence, I think it's useful to also layer in these social benefits tied to health costs for the benefits that our program delivers. So it's not just the classic amounts of dollars saved due to less waste management costs, but there are also values that our program deliver in reducing risk to human health and incidence of disease. And then lastly, I think this discussion really helps quantify the ethical obligations we all have, whether you're an engineer, that fundamental canon for all engineers who come from an ABET accredited course. They've been exposed to these ethics codes, hold paramount the safety, health, and welfare of the public, classic first do no harm in health, and then even licensed to operate. We are increasingly seeing companies wanting green energy or to reduce their dependence on fossil fuels due to their own sustainability and environmental goals. So what happens in this model? Users define the change in emissions from what emitters are doing in a sector in a county. And then those changes in emissions are converted from those 5 pollutants, and we'll see what those 5 are in a second. They are converted or quantified generally in PM 2.5 concentrations. So even your VOC emissions, the biggest impact on public health comes from this particulate matter, 2.5 microns. Those are what drive changes in public health. And then based on studies for reductions in health consequences derived from reduced exposure to emissions, those monetary impacts are woven into the COBRA model, and then out comes a dollar value. So if you've never done it, here's the quick how-to. You go to COBRA, you download it, you go to step 1, you choose an analysis year. In the market research reports addendum, the analysis years were 2012 and 2017. The updated version that came out mid-year has been 2016 is what was actually done, and then projected for 2023 and 2028. So you choose one. I suggest going with actual numbers and reductions between projected reductions from your project is your delta from 2016 is what I suggest. And whoops, skipped one. Nope, 2016. All right. You can, if you're a fancy schmancy user, which I am not, you can incorporate. The only reason I'm showing you here is this is under the more advanced options. You can input your own health benefits. You can input your own data, but for a screening tool for policymakers, I think it's just fine to choose the year and go with the pre-populated values. Then you create an emissions scenario, and this is where you would spend most of your time. Select your location. Where are emissions happening? County level is the greatest granularity you can choose, but you can choose many counties. You select your industry. You'll see a list of the industries. There's a macro list, and then under each one of those, you can choose more and more detailed. We'll see an example of that. And then you modify emissions. And then once you set that scenario, once you set that delta on the emissions, then you can look at the table of the emissions you've changed, and then step 3 is to run the program. So here, just for an example, I chose Kansas and I chose Crawford County, Kansas. You can choose as many counties as you want, as many states as you want, as many counties within states as you want. Once you do that, you then choose, these are kind of the large bins here of industries. Within each bin, there are smaller bins. If you choose the largest category, you are automatically choosing every subcategory within it. So for Crawford County, I found out, there's a green star over here, that currently a huge emission comes from, for all emissions, are VOCs that come from solvent utilization. A little further, so this is pre-populated with the data from 2016. Investigating a little bit further, that 856 tons, if you dig into it a little more, we see that 179 of it came from flexographic arts. And then the rest of it, as I recall, came from other. And so we don't know which specific organization emits this within Crawford County unless we have a good understanding of what's going on with that county. And Nancy and her colleagues, I'm sure, David, might know exactly what's going on in Crawford County, where those VOCs come from. Also note that these VOCs are not tied to energy, right? So that's not what's happening here, that this includes emissions that are not just energy related. So it's useful to use this tool to examine emissions from several sources, but that's how it's built. That's where most of the work has been done. When you are setting up your emissions scenario, when you are describing what reductions you want to have, these are useful data sources to look at what can be done within a particular industry. Or you can just go back and set either a reduction by percent. So you can put in 10%, which is what we did most often, or you can put in particular tons. So if you have a project that has completed or that projects to complete a certain tonnage of reduction of 2.5 SO2, NOx, ammonia, or VOCs, then you can put those exact tons in there for an exact type of industry within a particular county. And then you've set your delta, you apply your changes. If you want to add other counties, you add other counties, you add other industries, apply changes, and then you can run your scenario. To check before, whoops, sorry, wrong one. So once you put your scenario together, in this case, I chose solvent utilization and other industrial processes. You can look at the spreadsheet that comes out, and you can see that all of them, whether they're populated or not. Here's one that is not, does not have a value. There's a non-industrial other asphalt that doesn't have any values of change here. It's still included in your spreadsheet, so you can see by industry what's included. So it is another clue to help you figure out who's doing what, or to help you take credit for a project you have at a particular industry. So that's your scenario's been set. Then you execute the run. The only decision on executing the run is whether you have a 3% or a 7% discount rate. EPA recommends 3%. GSA recommends 7%. It's easy enough to run it twice. So run it twice. Once you get your results, you will see that they come out by state, by county in each state. They come out for the entire US. What's the impact? Not a lot happening in Alabama. What you get on screen from COBRA is a total up above, and then you can find out by county and by state what's going on. I find it easy to export to Excel. That's my recommendation. And then you can isolate the counties or the states for whom you are having the conversation. So I think it's of interest, for example, to the company I'm associated with now, of what's happening in 13 counties, its service area. So having the results come out that impact its service area due to reductions that it makes a lot of sense. You can also talk about its impact regionally or nationally, but I find by exporting, isolating to the specific counties is of greatest interest to the company you're working with, then I think that has a more powerful impact. The 3% and the 7% reductions, you can see right here, there's a slight difference, as you would expect from running two different discount rates, but it's a single multiplier for each one, and the maps don't change from one discount rate to another. Where the maps do change is you can isolate for each of the impacts. So here, if you just take a map of what happened with the PM 2.5 emissions based on the change in Crawford County, you see that the greatest impact was through a model that they use that hits primarily from the Great Lakes down to Texas through Southeast United States. But the total health benefits map is a little different. Why is the total health benefits map a little different? Primarily based on population density, not primarily, but it's also influenced by population density. So if you have more people around the Great Lakes, a smaller amount of impact and exposure will have a greater health benefit for a densely populated county. And so, so there's a variation here based not only on the emissions, but also on how great the population is.
And
So
Rick, excuse the interruption, Rick. I just want to let you know you've got about 10 minutes.
I'm just about done.
And yeah, okay, great. And because I'm sure people will have some questions.
Yep. So here's what we did in the MRR addendum. We took that table that you saw back here of results, and then we isolated it to, we said, here are the changes that we fed into the model, the screening tool. And these were the national adverse health impacts avoided based on those changes. And mortality is the biggest driver for the dollar value. And we didn't use all of the health impacts that come out of the model. We used the ones that we felt were of most interest to employers. Work days lost and minor restricted activity days being big ones that we think, because it goes back to productivity. And that's what it looked like in our MRR addendum. Note that if we were to run this today, we use a 2017 model in the old version. COBRA today would have some slightly different values. So that's it. I would just say, take a look at the BPK tool, where you have to figure out whether you're in the upper Midwest or the lower Midwest. You get values from the benefits per kilowatt hour values. This is another tool that was an extension from COBRA. And from this, I gave an example using an EPA Energy Star table. This is all in that MRR addendum report. And then I used the BPK values and for the upper Midwest, and showed that from the table of what Energy Star says that your savings are right here in this line for a tankless, for a heat pump water heater, and for solar. We added the BPK values and showed that from $44, your savings go up to $52 to $77. So based on the extended health benefits. So it's just another application of those social costs, those health impact costs related to lower exposure to emissions or lower risk due to lower emissions. There, now I'm done.
Mhm.
Questions?
So I just wanted to point out, I noticed that that you had lost work days listed as a benefit and a metric. And I know for Spirit, for our a lot of our manufacturers, they'll tell us, hey, Nancy, we just need people who will show up to work every day. And so, lost work days obviously has a huge economic value to it.
Thank you. Okay. So I need to go to the chat or person, or can someone help me with any questions or hands raised?
Sure, we don't have any in the chat right now.
Okay.
So just feel free to open up your mic and ask a question.
This is Jean. I'd like to get reaction from EPA on using this information as part of reporting on PT grants.
Well, this is Jim. I haven't used this tool at all, but there's definitely a lot of interesting information that Rick just presented. It's a question we'd probably have to take up, with our headquarters folks in terms of, some of the reporting and, they're always looking at measures because we've, been on those 4 key measures for several decades now. And, this could be something interesting to look at towards the future.
I think the future orientation is right, if I could just opine. But I also want to emphasize, and I value your response, Jim. I think the broader opportunity as well is for the agencies like KDHE, obviously a health agency as well. Is this helpful potentially for justifying budgets or defending programs?
Yeah, and this is Andrew. I'm just going to add to what Jim said and say that, obviously there's a variety of tools out there. I think many of you are taking advantage of them from our greenhouse gas emissions calculator. And then there's, obviously a variety of other calculators I think that, folks are using. So again, as Jim mentioned, I think we would take that into consideration if this is something, that you find useful and would be of benefit, particularly in your reporting.
Is this, Rick, do you know, is this tool, was it produced by ERG? Were they the contractor?
ABT, I think.
Rick, do you know, do they get some of like the VOC data? Is that TRI data?
So, no. Hang on. Let me check my notes. and I apologize for that. I just had that conversation. So TRI data, no, I don't think that's correct. I think it's the emissions inventory is where most of this comes from.
Nice, thanks.
Yeah, and that would make sense. And they just published, and Linnell, I'm looking for you to chime in. You're our air expert. They just published the most recent national emission inventory information. So I would think they would update this tool with that. I want to say it was 2019. We just got a notice on it last week. And so Linnell, I don't know if you want to add anything from your air perspective, but I also had a question. So Jeff, in the past, you've used a tool from Carnegie Mellon, and it produces maybe not these detailed health impacts, but definitely emissions and economics.
Right.
Do you guys still use that, and how do you see this comparing?
I don't know that I can comment on how it compares, but we're still using it. EPA agreed with us that we still wanted to use it so that it would mirror the results that we've already had versus the EPA calculator. I don't know if Jennifer wants to say anything about the comparison.
Oh, here, hang on. I gotta turn my camera on too. I don't know that there's really, because Carnegie Mellon is just calculating emissions, similar to like what the P2 calculator would do. It's not calculating, it's not taking, well, I guess I shouldn't say that. I'm speaking a little out of turn. I think, so it's a life cycle analysis, but I'm not sure how much or what type of component there would be that would also encapsulate like public health benefits versus just straight emissions. So I'd probably have to look into that a little bit to see. I don't know that that really answers your question, Nancy, but my best knowledge, I guess, off the top of my head is that it does not account for public health. It's just accounting for just straight emissions. So it would be sort of a separate thing.
To a life cycle extent.
Right.
Right, that's true. Yeah. Okay, any other questions for Rick? I have a few, Rick, but I'll pull them offline sometime and I'll catch you either by text or by email. And if there are no other questions, we want to thank you so much for presenting this and just, you know, wish you luck with all your retirement and your part-time positions. Sounds great. And we may tap you for some additional assistance with our data in this tool. And I guess I would ask EPA, is this something, since it was done for EPA, is this something you would approve, or do we just need to put it in our, do I have to get separate approval from you, or do we just need to put it in our quality assurance plan?
Yeah, I would think I'll make a note and check this with our folks in headquarters. I would think that since it was funded and is supported by EPA in a different program, but EPA nonetheless, that it would be something that we would work with. But I will double check that with our folks in headquarters to confirm that. And yes, that would be something to include it both in the work plan and in the quality assurance project plan.
All righty. Okay, well, thanks a lot. And Rick, we'd love for you to stay on. We're doing some brainstorming and talking about some topics that I know you have, probably a lot of input on with regard to P2 and collaborations and moving forward. So you're welcome to stay on, but we understand if you can't.
I'll stay for a little bit. I've got a hard stop at 11.
All right. Well,
Thank you.
thank you again very much. Okay, our next session, as you can see, I think I'm sharing my screen again here. Our next session is a couple of breakout sessions that we're going to do. And what we're wanting to do is have facilitated discussion on marketing and promotion, as well as regional collaboration. And I would like to turn this over to Andrew to give us a description, talk to us about what we're going to do, and I will handle the breakouts and kind of the technical logistics. And so, Andrew?
Yeah, thanks, Nancy. I'll turn my video on here. I think we have all of our facilitators with us now. I'll just, Nancy, if you want to do some, I'll kind of run through what we're going to be covering in these breakouts, and then if we could just introduce our moderators, and I'll introduce Penny from EPA and turn it over to Nancy and Linnell to introduce those from K-State who are assisting. So, we've decided to kind of have two simultaneous breakout sessions here today. One covering regional collaboration amongst P2, and the other to discuss P2 marketing and promotional opportunities. And so what we're going to do is break you into two groups. We're going to have a moderator for each group. Penny Harrell is going to be moderating our regional collaboration session, and then Danny from K-State is going to be moderating our marketing and promotional session. And it'll be 12 minutes a session, and then Nancy will handle the logistics and move folks between the breakout rooms. This will all happen via Zoom. Should just pop up on your screen there. And again, for the regional collaboration, we're looking to kind of walk through what are some opportunities within the 5 national emphasis areas right now, and again, kind of very quickly, where are folks working, and then what are ways that we can perhaps promote and enhance collaboration around the region, whether this is through internships and with particular industries or companies, different grant deliverables, partnership opportunities, or even kind of cross state lines, communities on the borders there that could use assistance in from both states, just with the breakdown. And then for the marketing and promotion, we're really looking at kind of a past, present, future of what's been done that's worked for folks. Any ways people are currently involved in marketing their programs. We heard some of that yesterday with the emergence of virtual assessments and during this COVID time. And then also, lastly, what opportunities look like going forward for marketing P2 programs. So with that, I'll just introduce Penny Harrell from EPA really quick. Penny is our Sustainable Management of Food Coordinator. She is very familiar, I think, with many of you on the line from her time both with EPA and non-EPA. She's a passionate food waste and recovery advocate, and also a P2 champion. So we're excited to have Penny with us today. And thanks for her support, graciously volunteering to assist as a moderator in this capacity. Nancy Linnell, did you want to introduce folks from K-State?
I can do that if you would like, Linnell. I was kind of waiting for you to jump in. All right. Well, what we have been able to do is ask Danny Lott. She's an administrative specialist. And there she is. She's been with us probably about 3 years or so. And so she also has a background in marketing, and she will be facilitating the marketing discussion. So thank you so much, Danny. Danny helps us all of our programs at Engineering Extension. So David's program in energy, we have a radon program, and then the Pollution Prevention Institute. And then I also want to introduce Laura Wallace. Laura was kind enough to just be our backup in case we needed it. And so we appreciate Laura being on. I think, Laura, we've got this, but Laura's a administrative specialist as well. She is also in the radon program and knows all about radon, helps people from all over the country through the National Radon Hotline and program. So thank you, Laura, for your willingness to be our backup and help us if we needed to, because these positions kind of changed a little bit as we went forward. We were really wanting to get who were on this call to be facilitators so that the Andrew and others could participate in the collaboration. So as Andrew described, when Andrew tells me he's ready for us, what we're going to do is I'm going to randomly split you up into 2 groups. And then I will make sure that Danny and Penny are in separate groups, and they'll get your group going. Danny and Penny will be taking some notes and making sure you hit on the 3 points, I believe, that Andrew and Linnell came up with for each topic. And then after 12 minutes, you'll get a warning. I'll come in, I'll give you a time warning, and basically you'll stay in the same room. I'll just switch Danny and Penny to different rooms. We've used this before with groups of 50 and it worked really well. And then unless someone else is wanting to, Danny and Penny will kind of be our reporters. And Penny's also going to help us kind of pull some things together in our discussion period. In just a few minutes on Andrew's cue, you will get a notice that says you are being removed to room 1 or 2, and you will just need to accept that notice. Once you are in a room, you will notice that you can leave that room at any time if you want to.
And Nancy, just one thing to note, and just a possibility is just maybe in order to help our moderators just a tad as they're kind of walking this through. I'm happy to kind of be a scribe during some of this. Would that be something, Laura, that you would feel comfortable doing as well, maybe for the other session, and then we can kind of work hand in hand with the moderators in that capacity?
Sure, that works.
Great idea.
Great,
so just to help with
Penny and Danielle and Danny, whoever you have, either Laura or I in the room with you, will take notes and work with you as we put together those report outs afterwards.
So then, Andrew, are you wanting me to switch you and Laura at the same time that I switch the moderators?
Yeah, that's great, Nancy. Sure.
Okay, so you're going to go with the moderator.
Sure.
Okay, got it. So you just let me know when you're ready and we'll get her done.
I think we're good as long as our moderators are good. I think we're ready to go.
All right. Let's see, Linnell. I may have to be the host, the full-on host to get my breakouts to show up. There we go. Thank you so much. All righty. And it'll just take a second. I'll have to check the room and make sure Penny and we've got the split accordingly, but we'll see you guys in a few minutes.
You're muted.
Why can't I get Danny to a breakout? Something is not quite working. Let me see, breakout. All right. There we go. That's how I do it. Okay, we'll see you in a few minutes, Danny. Oh, Linnell?
We do not have Penny or Danny in our room, the room that I'm in. So there's an issue there. We only have Laura.
You have her now. She's in there.
Okay. Well, is there a way for me to go back into my breakout room, I guess? Oh, I see it. I see it. No worries.
Yeah.
No worries.
Thank you, though. It just took me a second to get it all worked
Yeah.
out.